going to review how you can increase your quality of hire with employer branding. But first, let's go ahead and do some quick introductions. I'm Jen Picard, and I'm in charge of marketing for Bright Recruiter. At Bright, we aim to make the hiring process more efficient by connecting job seekers to their best opportunities and employers to their top prospects. Our machine learning algorithm, which is called the Bright Score, examines thousands of data points to find the best fit between job seekers and job openings. We are offering a 14-day trial of this, so I'd encourage everybody to take a look at it after the webinar. Today we'll be discussing how to build your employer brand, what you need to do to maintain it, and where to share it. But first, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about why employer branding is important. So, according to a survey conducted by the Corporate Responsibility magazine, they found that 75% of Americans would not take a job with a company that had a bad reputation, even if they were unemployed. With the top candidates getting a choice in where they work, your employment brand makes a huge difference in whether top candidates flock to your company or whether you continue to attract the more mediocre and underqualified candidates I'm sure a lot of you have been seeing through your job postings. So Google's a really great example of a company that's really worked on their employment brand and made candidates flock to them. Their employer brand is really loud and clear. They offer a fun environment, and their employees are encouraged to be creative. They also offer a lot of really great benefits, which include on-site laundry. They have gyms. They have a fully stocked kitchen. They have a chef, or multiple chefs, I believe, that provide the employees with complimentary breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So this means that their employees are really engaged in their work. They're working hard while they're at work, and they're not worrying about the things they have to get done at home, because they kind of have a little work-life integration happening. So as a result of the culture that Google has implemented in their company, candidates around the world not only know what to expect by working for them, but they're also interested in being a part of Google's culture. So as a result of that, they receive literally millions of applications every year, and they get their choice in the best talent in the entire world. They don't have to worry about the candidates that come in that aren't necessarily qualified because they have all of these top candidates that they can go after. So according to a web recruit survey, 32% of employers have the opposite problem. They're finding that quality is their biggest recruitment challenge. And, like we said, Google doesn't have that problem, and that's the power of employer branding. An employer brand like Google's did take a lot of time to build. It's built up over time, and it not only takes time, but it takes effort and resources to maintain that. But by capitalizing on employer branding, companies get noticed by top performers who have goals and values that are aligned with those of the organization. So not only can a strong employer reputation give you great bargaining power when it comes to finding candidates, but it also helps sometimes with skill shortages. So right now, they're saying that there's not necessarily a candidate shortage, but it's just that the candidates don't have the skills that match what employers are looking for. And so the candidates that have those top skills are in really high demand. So during this time, a great employer brand can prove to be a powerful candidate attraction tool as well. So you can get those candidates that have the skills that you need. A great employer brand also encourages and fosters employee engagement, and it boosts productivity and performance. So the first thing that you should do in assessing your employment brand is to find out where you stand right now. There's really no point in creating a whole plan or trying to figure out where you want to be if you don't know where you currently are and what it takes to get there. So I would recommend that everybody start with your employees and find out what they think about your company. The Saratoga Institute found that 88% of employees leave their organization for reasons other than money. So make sure that you know what your employees like and dislike about working at your company. Make sure you know where you stand on things like employee recognition, opportunities for advancement, training, what your management team looks like. The next thing you'll want to do is survey those candidates survey your job candidates to find out about their experience with your company. So this is important for making sure that people that interview with you or at least submit an application are happy with their experience. And I received a survey a couple of months ago before I started at Bright. I was looking for a job, and it was just a recruiter trying to figure out what my experience looked like with them. And I was able to provide honest feedback, about how I felt about the time it took them to contact me back. And even the survey made me have a better impression of them because it made me feel like they cared about what I thought. So if you survey your candidates to find out what they think about their experience with your company, you're not only making them feel a little bit better about you, but you're also able to find out if they would apply again, if they would recommend that their friends and family apply. If you made them an offer which was rejected, you can find out why they rejected your offer. Was it because of money? Was it because they got an offer at Google? Was it because they wanted work-life balance instead of work-life integration? There's always different reasons why people are turning down your offers, and if you know why that's happening, then you can determine if that's something that you're okay with or if that's something you'd like to change. And so finally, you want to check that your company reviews on Glassdoor and CareerBliss and other sites are in line with what people are saying about you through your surveys. So you might find that people are a little bit more honest on these sites because of the anonymity factor. And you can see if it matches up with what you've already heard from your employees and candidates. I'd also recommend that everybody be monitoring your employment brand online. So this is something that smaller companies may want to team up with their marketing department with. I'm sure your marketing department is already kind of checking out what people are saying about you. They're seeing things that your employees and your candidates are saying as well. So they could easily just forward that stuff over to you. Or you could do some monitoring on your own. So some really easy, low-cost ways to do this is you could set up some Google alerts. So if you just do a Google search for Google alerts, you can set up your company name. You can set up certain keywords that people might be writing about you. You can try following your @mentions on Twitter. You can stay on top of articles which mention your company. And all these things can either make or break your employment brand, so you really do need to be aware of them, whether your marketing department's already kind of reviewing them or not. But even more importantly than being reactive is being proactive. So let's talk about how you can make a plan of action. Take what you've learned from employees and your candidates through your surveys and make a plan to get from where you are right now to where you'd ideally want to be. 84% of companies believe that a clearly defined strategy is the key to achieving your employer branding objectives, and I completely agree. You kind of need to create a roadmap for yourself. So I would start by taking a look at your employee value proposition. So what are the characteristics of working for your organization, and what's the appeal of working for your organization? And this really goes beyond just your salary and benefits. We want to talk about the entire employment experience, from your culture to your management style to career development and employee recognition and reward. In fact, studies actually show that financial compensation is actually not a top motivator for employees. So talent managers need to consider the organizational culture, the vision, the overall work experience, what the management team is like, and other engagement factors to best determine this. I did mention earlier that 88% of employees leave a company for reasons other than money. So if you want to ask your employees in the survey what they want, you can try to come up with a plan that allows you to give them what they're looking for. So you want to determine your objectives and come up with strategies to accomplish them. And I think the most important thing here is make sure that your strategies and objectives are realistic. I would recommend bringing in somebody from each department to brainstorm and provide feedback. And this shouldn't just be managers. You kind of want people from all organizational levels that have feedback from different points of view. So this goes anywhere from your interns to your senior level executives to your mid-level employees. Everybody has a different experience with your company, but you want everybody's experience to be positive because they're out there and they can quickly discuss what it's like to work for your company with their friends and their family members. They might leave the company and just completely blast you on social media. There was an article, I think last year, about Goldman Sachs, where a guy basically just blasted them about all the reasons why he was leaving the company. And those are all really bad for your employment brand. So by gathering feedback from all different levels of people in the organization, you can get feedback from everybody and kind of see what, even the lower level employees' experience looks like, what the higher level employees' experience looks like. And it's actually probably better if you don't have the managers and their direct reports in the same meeting for this. That way everybody can speak freely. So once you've come up with an actionable plan, you want to create goals for implementation and then continually collect feedback from employees and candidates to make sure you're measuring progress. So that means that survey that you did, don't just do it once. Do it annually or twice a year or every quarter. Try and gather as much feedback as you can, because it takes years to build a strong brand, but it really only takes a little bit of time to destroy it. So by keeping a pulse on what everybody thinks about you, from your candidates to your employees, you can see, kind of how your employer brand is improving, and then you can measure it as well, so you can see how well you're doing in the implementation. So the cycle of collecting feedback, implementing changes, and collecting more feedback will ensure that you're improving your employer brand and attracting and retaining the best talent. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about your employee program to make sure that employees are bought into your employment brand. A Manpower survey found that out of 20,000 job quitters, money is actually the third most common reason people quit. Ranking before it is limited career opportunities and lack of respect and support from a supervisor. And what I found particularly interesting about this is that most people cite their supervisor as the reason they quit. So the reasons were either from lack of respect or support, lack of leadership, bad relations with their supervisor, favoritism by their supervisor, and lack of recognition. So these are all things that you want to ask about during the survey and address in your strategy. So you want to make sure that you're asking people about their manager. Do they like working for their manager? Does their manager engage them? Does their manager provide opportunities for them to learn and grow and advance in their career, or do they feel that their manager is trying to hold them back a little bit? So you want to make sure that your employees are happy with their managers, because managers are the #1 reason that employers are quitting, according to this survey. So you want to make sure that that's not happening at your company. So once you have this feedback, you want to put it into your culture and your vision, and you want to make sure that this starts at the top. So this is going to start with the senior executives, and especially your CEO has to be on board with this effort. Changing your culture into a positive one of recognition and appreciation is so possible when it's directed from the top and enabled through all of your employees. So what I really want to stress here is that you should treat your employees and also your candidates like they're customers. So you always want to make sure that your customers are happy and your employees help make your customers happy. So it really starts there. So if you treat your employees like customers, you ensure that they're completely satisfied. This will not only help you retain them, but it can also help you recruit new top talent into your organization. So this brings us to discuss your candidate experience. The candidate experience has so many touch points and so many opportunities to make a wrong move that it can really easily hurt your employment brand. So whether you're reaching out to an active job seeker or a passive candidate, the first thing is that you need to be communicative and you need to be clear in your initial communication. So depending on whether it's an active or a passive candidate, or whether they applied or whether you reached out to them, your approach might be a little bit different. But you want to make sure that your initial reach out is representing your company in the right way. So a lot of the time this starts with a job posting or a job rec of some sort. So you want to make sure that you're including the responsibilities, the location, the salary, some essential criteria, as well as desirable criteria, some of your benefits, and your working hours. And by including all this key information in your recruitment copy from the start, you're allowing your candidate to realize up front what they're getting themselves into. So an active candidate that's applying for your job understands what they're applying for. And a passive candidate that you're reaching out to, or a candidate that you just found through Bright.com or through LinkedIn, you want to make sure that they know what their conversation is about. So if they're taking time off of work, you want to make sure that they know what the opportunity is and if it's worth their time, because you don't want to waste people's time, because it wastes your time as well. So if you fail to include some of this key information in your recruitment copy early on, the candidate will just find out at a later stage, and they'll be a little bit disgruntled. They feel like they wasted their time and their effort in the recruitment process, and they may not want to apply for your company again, even if they are a top candidate. So you want to make sure that you're not scaring away your top candidates by having, a bad or a bad recruitment experience. It's also vital to create engaging recruitment copy to attract the interest of your candidates. So generally, your online recruitment advertisements have two main functions. One is to be found by the right people, and two is to get them to apply for the role. So we talked a little bit about getting them to apply for the role. You want to include the information that makes them feel like it's a good use of their time to apply, but then you also want to make it easy to apply via your career site. Once you do have a candidate engaged in the recruitment process, either through applying for your job or through a reach out, communication is going to be the key to candidate experience. And candidates love feedback, even if it's a no. So they just want to see where they are in the process. So you can see in the graph on this slide that the top two complaints are about communication, more appropriately about the lack of communication. So I was reading an article on the HR Fishbowl last week, which I found really interesting. It's basically talking not about candidate experience, but more about candidate courtesy. And so the point was that it's not really about, it's not so much about an experience, it's just doing the right thing. If somebody takes the time to apply to your job, takes the time to speak with you over the phone, or takes the time to come in for an interview, it's just common courtesy to reach out to them and let them know where they stand in the process. So the first step here is that everyone that submits an application to your company should get a response back acknowledging their application and thanking them, and also giving some next steps. People just want to know, are you reviewing resumes as they come in and contacting people immediately, or are you going to collect applications for a week and then get back to me in a week and a half? So it's always important in these initial communications just to confirm that you received their resume and let them know what the next step in the process is. This is really easily done if you're a small company. You just set up an away message through an extra email handle that you have available. If you're a larger company, you're probably using an ATS to do this. And with the amount of candidates that people have coming in, it's definitely going to be important to use some sort of technology just to make sure that you're providing a good candidate experience at this point in the application process, because this is where the most people are coming in and where most people are dropping off as well. So, I heard that the average job posting is getting, 1 to 200 resumes per job posting. And you're probably only calling 20 or so, maybe even less, for your first step interview process, which is probably a phone screen. So the majority of the people are looking for just some sort of interaction at that point to let them know that you received their application, and whether or not they'll be moving into the next step is the next thing you'll want to do. So at every point in the process, you want to make sure that you're communicating about the next step, and then you're letting them know if they've made it to that next step or not. You want to, if somebody is moving on to the next step, you want to try and be flexible with some of your interviews. Many of the people that you're probably interviewing will be employed, and they don't want to jeopardize their current position. So if you have some flexible interviewing options, like a video interview or a first step phone screen, or if you're available to meet after hours or perhaps one weekend day a month, things like that can help you reach your top candidates, or at least not deter them. Because if you deter them, then your competitor just scoops them up. So try and be flexible, because your interview experience really speaks volumes about your company as an employer. This kind of reminds me, I was reading an article a couple weeks ago about Van Halen's M&M clause. I don't know if anybody else saw it. I think it was on TLNT. But it basically, in the technical portion of the contract, Van Halen wrote that there should be no brown M&Ms found in the backstage area, or the promoter will forfeit the entire show at full pay. So this is a really strange request, especially to put in the technical portion of your contract. But basically what Van Halen was getting at here is that the technical portion of his contract was so important to read, because if his instructions weren't followed to the T, then it could really, compromise his band's safety, his fans' safety, and he wanted to make sure that didn't happen because it would look poorly on him. So what this kind of goes to show is that, what he was trying to see is if the person reading the contract was detail-oriented or not. He was basically looking for, any sort of potential problems that could happen. If he found any area that had brown M&Ms in any of the bowls, then he knew that they weren't detail-oriented enough to read his entire contract, and therefore they probably missed other important details. So where this comes in for recruitment is that your candidates are kind of judging you in the same way. If you're not willing to negotiate with them on the interview time, they wonder what you're going to be like as an employer. What if they need time off? What if their kids get sick? What if they want to take a vacation or work from home? Just how flexible are you going to be as an employer if you're not flexible with your interviewing? They're also looking for your communication skills. So, the number one thing that recruiters are looking for in candidates is communication skills. But oftentimes, candidates don't receive that same standard. So, recruiters aren't communicating on a great level, and so candidates wonder, well, if they're not communicating with me well now, what is it going to be like when I work there? So you want to make sure that all of the different stages of interacting with your candidates is positive, and that you're communicating well, and that you're coming off as an employer of choice in every single step of the stage. And then finally, any candidate that you interview with needs to also have a live conversation explaining your position on their candidacy without exception. A couple years ago, I was applying for a few positions, and I think the worst part was when I had gone through the entire recruitment process. I had submitted a custom cover letter and resume. I had done the phone screen. I had met with 4 or 5 different recruiting and hiring managers at different stages. And I was in the very last step of the process and literally never heard back. And all I wanted to know was yes or no. Feedback would have been great too, but it's really hard as a candidate to just kind of be left hanging. You don't know how many times should you call. Recruiters don't really like it if you call them every single day for a month. But if you're expecting an answer, you kind of just want to get that answer from them as soon as possible, so you know whether you should move on and consider other opportunities or if you should hang on for this one. So candidates really do, in general, prefer an interview process that's structured, that's organized, and that's clear. So you want to make sure that your entire process is planned and well thought out. Because first impressions always count. So the candidate experience is one of the most talked about topics in the recruitment industry today, and this is for a really good reason. And with more candidates looking for work, companies are dealing with an increased level of potential employees for every position they recruit for. So like I was saying earlier, every position has between 1 and 200 candidates, and it can be really time-consuming for the recruiter to go through all of those resumes to try and find the best one. And this is really where technology comes in very handy. So like I mentioned earlier, you can use an ATS, or you can use an autoresponder just to verify that you received the information. This is also where Bright.com comes in really handy. We have a free tool available right now that's called the Bright Score Calculator, where you can put in your job posting, and then you put in all of the resumes you've received, and we automatically match the best resumes to your job description for you, so that you can spend more time on the ones that our algorithm has determined to rank a little bit higher, and not really worry about the ones that don't have a very strong correlation to what you're looking for. And then we also have the Bright Recruiter tool, which is a paid tool, where you can search our entire database automatically. So your job description is already in our system, and it automatically just matches up with some of the other candidates that we have available that have not applied to your position. And it also gives you a score, so you can see how well qualified they are. So definitely try and, make sure that you're using technology effectively to make your process more efficient, to make sure that you're reducing your time to hire, and to make sure that you're giving your candidates the best experience possible. Finally, we want to talk about where you can share your employment brand. So what you're seeing here is an example of Right.com's career section. We have 4 pages, actually, where we talk about life and culture. We have information on benefits and perks. We have the top 10 reasons to work at Bright, and then we also have a section for our open positions. And then all of our job postings link back to this career section so that, we do have little snippets of information about our culture and benefits in each posting to get people interested, but then they can also come to our site to get even more information. What we also do is we share some of our employment branding information across our social networks. So there was a survey where a company asked job seekers which social networks they follow company activity on. And it looked like most companies, not most respondents, most candidates, 74% of candidates use LinkedIn to follow companies. 45% use Facebook, 26% use Twitter, 18% use Google+, 2% use Pinterest, and only 9% don't use any social media channels to follow a company at all. So if you're going to use some of these platforms, I recommend starting with LinkedIn and Facebook, which have the biggest amount of people that use them to follow companies. So on LinkedIn, you can create your own group. You can position it as a subgroup to your corporate one if you have that. And this will give your candidates a chance to kind of engage with you and engage with one another about their experiences and what they'd like to see from you. You can share jobs. You can talk about things that make your company great to work for and get feedback from people. On LinkedIn, it's also great to connect with people who could potentially down the line be a great candidate for you, even if you don't have a position for them right now. You can create a company profile. So this is really important. A lot of people will follow your company page. So in addition to listing services, which I'm sure your marketing department handles, you can also put in your latest vacancies. You can put in information about the philanthropy events that you do, about the team building events that you have, anything that kind of helps you stand out as an employee or as an employer of choice. And then, a lot of those things you can share across your various social networks. So any pictures that you post on LinkedIn, you can also post on Twitter, you can post them on Facebook, put them up on Pinterest, put them on your blog. If you repurpose your content, then it doesn't take as much time and effort to create it all. And you're still creating a lot of value for your candidates by sharing it across different networks. On Twitter, you can segment people you're following by skill set or by location or industry. You can share your jobs, although you don't want to do this too often. You want to make sure that jobs probably aren't any more than 20% of what you're posting. But Twitter is really great for interacting with people and just kind of getting conversations going. A lot of companies even have a blog. So one of my favorites is Vocus. They have a great employment blog where you can ask the staff to contribute, and they tell people why someone would want to join the team, what it's like to work in the marketing department or what it's like to be a software engineer at your company. And hearing from the employees is such a great way to build your employment brand because it shows that they really do feel that the employment brand is legitimate and that it's true and that the company is transparent. And candidates love to hear from people that are currently working in that position why they should want to work there too. Another idea is you can create a newsletter and you can target it at people who send in their resumes without maybe a position that they're ready for yet, and then you can share some of these blog post ideas. The big point here is that you want to share your employment brand everywhere. You want your employees to be living and breathing it and believing in it. And that's going to help your candidates do the same. I found a study, I can't remember who it was by, but it said that most candidates look at 15 different sources before deciding to apply to a job. So they're definitely looking at your career page. They're looking at your social media channels. They're probably looking at Glassdoor and Career Bliss. They're basically just doing a Google search to see where they can find information about you. And if you're a great company to work for. So the more places that you can share your employment brand, the better. You just want to make sure that the message is consistent throughout. So that's it for our presentation today. Just wanted to thank everybody so much for joining us. As we discussed, Bright Recruiter can help you quickly weed through your resumes and find candidates that have not applied to your position, which reduces the time you spend on finding and screening candidates. So I highly recommend that everybody sign up for a free 14-day trial to see how we can help you out. You can sign up at bright.com/register/employer.